All right, and hello everybody, especially people watching the replay of this. It's been a while, but I am indeed back for this one, and there was a story that came up recently that I just thought plays into a lot of stuff I've been following. So I have not been posting much, I'm sure you guys have noticed, but I have still been following very closely what's going on with Andrew Yang and his, not him alone, but the larger push towards having something closer to more party representation in the United States political system, which I think a lot of people would probably, with the way things are going nowadays, tend to agree with. And I thought this was an interesting story. This has been out for, I guess, June 30th, but we're looking at probably about 2 weeks. If you're watching this now, maybe 13 days. Anyway, though, it's a pretty interesting story, so I thought we'll start here at the little bit more kind of dry end of it. And this is a post from the North Carolina State Board of Electors. Move it down a bit so you can see. So this was posted on the 30th, and it mentions how mid-investigation, the state board will turn down the Green Party's recognition. So what is this? Why does it matter? What's the point? Well, we'll go through it. Again, it's pretty dry, typical .gov thing here. State Board of Elections on Thursday voted not to recognize the Green Party as an official political party in North Carolina, citing an ongoing investigation into evidence of fraud and other irregularities in the petition process used to seek ballot access for the party. By a vote of 3-2, the board voted down a motion to recognize the Green Party, concluding the petitions were not yet shown to be sufficient under law. So, sounds pretty cut and dry, right? One thing, I guess I'll spoil it a little bit for you. That 3-2 vote, something they don't mention here on these .gov websites a lot, 100% party lines. 3 Democrats voted to block, 2 Republicans voted to allow them on the ballot, which might give away a little bit of the threads of where the story's going anyway. Anyway, they mentioned that recognition would have allowed the Green Party candidates to appear on ballots in the November 2022 general election, and it would have also allowed North Carolina voters to register as affiliated with the Green Party. Currently, North Carolina voters can register as unaffiliated or as members of the Democrat, Libertarian, or Republican parties. So it's kind of the issue. Why does this matter? That's why it's a big deal to get this thing passed, to get your name on the ballot. Because not only is your name on the ballot for your upcoming people who want to run for the Green Party, it's also a way for people to register to be a member of the Green Party. And there's a lot of, I'm not here shilling for the Green Party, but I'm just saying there's a lot of reasons why registering for a third party is important for moving forward with some of the, if we do eventually want to get to a point where we're not just ran by Democrats or Republicans for the rest of our life, it's kind of one of the things we'll have to get to first. So I'll go down here a little bit. You guys can see the whole thing if you want. I'll post the link in the description. But anyways, larger point here is this is why they turned it down. So I'll make sure we go through this first. It's not some crazy grand conspiracy or anything. The same handwriting appeared throughout a petition page and or signatures. Oh, sorry. To date, the investigation has found numerous petition pages containing signs of fraud or other irregularities. This includes signatures that have previously been approved by the county boards. Regularities include same handwriting throughout a petition page and or signatures that clearly appear to be written by the same person. Now, this is one of the ones, I guess I don't want to get too much of a tangent, but this is one of the ones that's kind of weird to me from the beginning. Clearly appears to be written by the same person. I don't know whose opinion that is. I don't know what science they use for that. I don't know what handwriting expert comes in and decides that, but apparently it's clear. As long as it's clear, they can deny it. Anyway, three signature gathering contractors hired for this petition collected 1,400 signatures, but only 624 were accepted, and at least 3 workers were paid by these signatures collected. As far as I know, something similar to that's not really too crazy for most petitions that are gathered. Some people are volunteers, but there are people who are sent out to gather names for petitions, and most of the time they are compensated for their work, especially in how much they do. Not always, I'm not going to say specific, but it is kind of a weird reason to throw something out. Voters apparently signed a petition more than once, totally reasonable reason. Voters whose names appear in the signature sheet claim they never signed the petition, I guess also a pretty good reason. Petition sheets include deceased voters or voters long removed from the voter registration files, indicating submissions of signature sheets from a past Green Party petition drive. Anyway, I don't want to get too long into this. Point is, before I go into exactly what was going on, I just want to show you that this was the official stance of the North Carolina Board of Elections. Now, where things get a little bit weird here is one of the people that have objected to this is one of the 3 parties who you can sign up for, and that is the North Carolina Libertarians. So let's go through and see what is it that they are so concerned of. So Brian Irving, the executive director of the North Carolina Libertarian Party, told Carolina Journal that the 8 times his party turned in petitions for certification, they never saw a level of scrutiny by the State Board of Elections that the Green Party received in its recent failed certification effort. Irving, who has helped lead the NCLP for decades, said that typically the State Board would accept signatures verified by county elections boards as valid and wouldn't refuse to certify based on unproven questions about those signatures, which is something that you would imagine, right? I mean, again, going back to what was going on with the North Carolina, they were saying that signatures appeared to be duplicates. A lot of just we didn't feel good about it. And also, it kind of brings into question the party line voting on it. So, again, I don't want to get too far into what it is that the Libertarians are saying, but it is interesting that you're seeing that Libertarian Party, who is already on the ballot, standing up for ballot access for people who are trying to get where they are, right? I don't think the Green Party, Libertarian Party are necessarily adversarial from what I've seen for the most part. You know if I'm wrong, but for the most part, they seem to be kind of recognizing they're both outsiders. So, give me 1 second. I just want to quickly readjust this. However, where things get a little bit fishy on this one, and where what I expect to unfortunately continue to happen is something along the lines of what we saw. What we saw going on the ground, right? It's one thing to say that, hey, look, the county electors approved it, but then when it went up to the actual state election board, it just didn't get past there, you know? They said it was some irregularities. They said that there was some stuff that wasn't right about it. They said some names looked like duplicates. Some people hadn't voted in a long time. Some people were paid to collect signatures. And as a result, you know, they had to turn it down. But this is what's interesting. This is what it actually looks like on the ground, right? So, powerful Democratic law firm intervened in North Carolina Green Party certification. Now, how did they intervene? Up here's a video. I'm going to post the link right now so you guys can watch this video. I don't find it particularly compelling sitting down and watching a video. So if you want to watch it yourself, it's in there. However, brief description of what's going on in this is right here in the kind of subtext. So, Ryan Parker, a Raleigh resident who signed the Green Party's petition for ballot access, was approached at home by a woman who identified herself as the North Carolina Democrats who asked him to revoke his signature. Now, the video itself is very interesting. Maybe we should run it, but anyway. Go over a gist of it first. So essentially, this man has someone show up to his house, young woman here. And again, I'm not saying this that any of these people involved are good people or bad people or she did anything wrong. But I'm trying to highlight this is on the ground what happens, right? You'll submit your signatures. They'll be turned in. You'll think you'll have them right. They'll, contest some, which is normal. However, what we saw happen here is we actually had, again, I wonder if she was doing this for free, but I'm not going to get too far into that. We had people going home to ask people whose names who had appeared on these petitions, not if they had signed it, but if they would like to remove their name from the petition. That was specifically a request. Would you like to remove your name? Actually, you know what? Let's just let it run. Let me see if you guys can hear it.
Disadvantage to Democrats.
There we go. So we'll watch this.
So we're asking people if they're interested in removing their name from the petition.
Okay, so you're from
North Carolina Democrats.
You're from North Carolina Democrats, correct? Yeah. And you used the public information based on the petition that I signed, correct? For getting the Green Party candidate onto the ballot, correct?
Well, that's the petition that you signed.
Correct. Yeah.
I don't want to pause too much. I want to pause it for a second. I want to go back to the very first thing she said. She repeats it again later. But when this man presses her and says, "Why are you here? Why are you doing this?" She kindly reminded him. I guess we'll go to the beginning. We'll play it. We're at 30 seconds. I want you to listen to this really quickly.
It'd be a huge disadvantage to Democrats and it would be an advantage to Republicans.
It'd be a huge disadvantage to Democrats. Huge disadvantage to Democrats and an advantage to the Republicans. Mind you, the Republican third party, the Libertarian Party, which is kind of where, if you think the Republicans are a little bit too cool with government, you go over to the Libertarian Party. They're on the ballot in North Carolina. You can register not as a Republican, but as Libertarian in North Carolina if you want to. You can run not as a Republican, but as Libertarian in North Carolina if you want to. And I don't want to get too much into the, debates here, but for the most part, I don't think there's too much debate in the fact that the Green Party kind of serves as the larger national third party for the Democrats, and the Libertarian Party kind of serves as the larger third party nationally for the Republicans. When you get specific and you go into different little areas, a little bit different, but for the most part, that's where it is. And I think it's very fascinating, the idea that Democrats pay people to go door to door to find people who signed a petition specifically because they don't want to be a Democrat to remind them that, well, you might be harming the Democrats. So a little play for a minute.
Yeah, so we're just asking people if they were interested in removing their name from the petition. Like, some people signed it and didn't know they were being misled. Some people didn't even sign it, but their signature was on there. So that they're investigating that too.
Yeah, I get it. You have to audit the petition, correct? Yeah.
Yeah, well, I'm not sure how that works. Like,
Interesting there. You mentioned this guy figured this is for an audit. No, it's not for an audit. This is literally Democrats sending people to your front door to basically give you mafia talking points. You know, this is going to be bad for the Democratic Party. See, a lot of people that signed this, they were misled. They didn't realize the damage to the Democratic Party. Because I'm assuming when she says misled, that's what she meant. People thought, silly people, they thought they could just vote for whoever they wanted. They thought if they want to be a Libertarian or a Green Party member, they could. They didn't realize, though, it's not up to them. It's up to the Democrats, and it's bad for them. So guess what? We're going to send people to your front door to remind you of this fact. So sorry,
they just contracted me to go around and ask people.
Okay. About if I wanted to take my name off of the list.
Correct.
And that's because, like, I'm not following. I mean, I signed it because I wanted the Green Party to be on the ballot.
Right. So we're letting people know that it would be a disadvantage for Democrats and an advantage for Republicans.
Literal mafia stuff. Hey, I saw you were doing X. I just want to let you, I'm just coming by to let you know, if you keep doing X, it's going to be a problem for some people, man. Mind you, the interests of this man are of no concern to this woman. And I'm not trying to be rude to her. She's just doing what she believes in, I guess. But no consideration to this guy. He even says, well, I signed it because I want to be a member of the Green Party. That's why I did it. And you'll notice her response to that was, I understand that, but you do realize it's going to be bad for the Democrats, right? I'll play one more time.
Right.
Sorry.
Like, they just contracted me to go around and
Again,
ask
contracted.
Okay.
So,
about
paid.
If I wanted to take my name off of the list.
Correct.
And that's because, like, I'm not following. I mean, I signed it because I wanted the Green Party to be on the ballot.
Right. So we're letting people know that it would be a disadvantage for Democrats and an advantage for Republicans.
Right. You guys should move further left, and then that wouldn't happen.
So again, I'm not going to spend the whole time watching this video, but I do think it's really fascinating to see, again, what the ground level looks like this. Because when you get to like the higher up levels, when you get to the government level, when you go to the official government sources, it just looks like this. Look, amid investigation, they're going to turn the party down. And you get to the reasons, and look, these sound like pretty regular reasons, right? Same hand. Again, this one's not a good reason. Same handwriting appeared. Okay, well, if you can't validate it one way or the other, reach out to the people. Don't look at the handwriting. But beyond that, signing more than once, totally valid reason. This is the one I wanted to come back and highlight too. Voters whose name on the opinion, they claim they never signed it. I wonder if there are some people who, before they were asked if they signed the petition, had a member of the Democrats come up to their house, give them the mafia spiel. Hey, man, I know you signed this, but we think you were misled. And we think you were misled because we know you would never knowingly work against the Democrats, right? It's like you're being misled right now. I don't want to get too conspiratorial, but I do wonder. Right? I do wonder if anybody had maybe a crisis of conscience when they found out that they were actually harming the Democratic Party and decided, whoa, I didn't even sign it. You know, I didn't know it was on it. Anyway, again, not getting into the conspiratorial, but it is just interesting to me when you see kind of what it actually looks like on the ground. What you read when you get to the official sources, people say is one thing. But on the ground, it looks like somebody showing up to your front door unannounced to say, basically, by the way, when someone shows up to your front door unannounced with your name and they know you live there, getting into the mafia, it's another one of those things. We know where you live, we know what your name is. We know who you are. We have all your information. That's why I'm here. I wouldn't be here if I didn't know who you were. I wouldn't be here if there wasn't a reason. It's all implied in this stuff. That's why I don't like it and why I think it's rude and why I do think it's a good way to highlight kind of this larger thing. Because obviously I was a very close follower of Andrew Yang for a couple of years now. And recently, I guess, probably a year now after his attempt to be... Honestly, again, this is a side issue. But like, whole I think, I said it from the beginning, I think not being elected mayor of New York City is probably one of the best things that ever happened to Andrew Yang. Not for his Democrat political future, he can only fall up in that regard, but for just his well-being, I'm very happy for him. He is not the mayor of New York City at this moment. It seems like one of those jobs that just, you can't win. However, that aside, there's a growing push outside of Andrew Yang and around that to create access to the ballots for people who aren't just Democrats, aren't just Republicans, and even greater than Libertarian and Green Party. You know, it's kind of why I put third party in quotes up there. There's this idea that there is third parties, which in and of itself is a way to diminish it's a way to kind of knock him down a peg, right? There's the real parties and the third party, right? There's Coke and Pepsi, and there's like RC Cola and the grocery store brands. They're not the same. And I think it's kind of one of those things that in the long run will be one of the harder things to break down if we are going to get to a point where we're represented by more than just Democrats and more than just Republicans. Let me know in the comments what you guys think. Let me know in chat what you guys think. But just, to me, that seems like the hardest thing. Hey, look, getting the names, getting on ballots, having parties show up on a list is great, and it's necessary, and it's definitely one of the steps, right? Don't get me wrong on that. But it's not going to break through people's, for example, I mean, this woman saw nothing wrong with taking money to show up to this guy's front door and basically say, I know you signed the petition, but take your name off because we don't want it on there. It's bad for us. And again, I don't think there's bad people doing it. I think they're kind of legitimately looking at it kind of like, this is bad for Democrats. Democrats are good, so we have to do it. You can't do what's bad for Democrats because we need Democrats to win. So, and moving a little bit more past this, because I can go on this particular topic for a while, but I don't want to get too far into it. Instead, what I want to go into is kind of one of the proposed solutions to this, right? Like, how do you get around this? If they're going to send people to your front door with a list of names and addresses and say, hey, Mr. So-and-so, I know you live here. I know you signed this petition. I know you think you can just go against the Democrats, but we're watching you. Instead of that, what's the other way around that? And something that's been advocated for by Andrew Yang and others is ranked choice voting, which recently has kind of become a bit more of a topic in Alaska because ranked choice voting is now going to be the system. I don't know. It's going to be, I don't know the word for it because I'm so used to just regular election systems. That's going to be on the ballot, I guess you could say. Not in the sense that you could vote to have ranked choice voting. Ranked choice voting will literally be on the ballot. They have a picture of a sample ballot here. And I think it's kind of interesting, the official state of Alaska official ballot, and you can see right here. U.S. State of Representatives, kind of zoom in a little bit for this so you can see a little bit better, but this is what it's going to look like. And I think this really is the way, I don't say way forward, but something closer to this is what we have to do. The democratic processes that exist currently are just going to exist to shoulder and elbow out any additional parties. You can't just have... You can't just have people show up and say, hey, we're an organization with 1/100th of the funding of you. We're an organization with 1/1000th of the membership of you. But our existence is still an existential threat to you. And you got to let us on the ballot. It's never going to happen. So I think it's interesting. And now, so again, just to run over what ranked choice voting is for anybody who is a little bit unaware of it. It's essentially, as you can see right here in the sample ballot, it's very similar to how, if you're familiar with pro sports, how they do MVP voting. Where basically all the voters will vote for their MVP, their most valuable player in the league. 1 through 5, I believe, is it. 1 is weighted the most, 5 is weighted the least. And they basically go through and whoever has the most first place votes wins. Now, what makes ranked choice voting a little different, I'm going to pull up this, give me 1 second. I just want to pull up the official Ballotpedia page that explains everything about ranked choice voting, is that in a ranked choice voting system, voters rank candidates for a given office by preference on their ballots. If a candidate wins an outright majority of first preference votes, i.e. 50% plus, he or she will be declared the winner. So basically, if there's 40 people on the list and 65% vote for one person, it doesn't matter. If, on the other hand, no candidate wins outright majority of first preference votes, the candidate with the fewest first preference votes is eliminated, and then all first preference votes for the failed candidate are eliminated, lifting the second preference choices indicated on those ballots. New tally is conducted to determine whether any candidate is won outright, and the process is repeated until a candidate wins a majority of votes cast. Kind of a confusing way to say that what they're going to be doing is they're going to be just basically removing the bottom people from the list until eventually there is a majority somewhere. I think they actually, I think I've seen some systems where they move the votes up. So for example, if the 5th place person had 1,000 votes, they put those to like the next highest person. Anyway, I'm not going to get into the weeds of it. However, just explaining why this is useful. It is a way of essentially entirely circumventing some of the... What's the word for it? Basically, you can get your name on the ballot first. You can win your seat first, and then if you want to team up with another party, you're going to be teaming up with another party as a sitting whatever you are. Sitting member of Congress, sitting mayor, whatever it is you win, you now get to decide who who you're going to align with. You don't necessarily have to go all out. However, as we saw what's going on in North Carolina, they're not going to make that easy for you, right? They're gonna send people to your door. They're gonna ask a bunch of questions. But one thing I thought was interesting is a lot of people do not like ranked choice voting. I think we've gone over that, right? A lot of people find it a threat. I mean, in a way, it is an existential threat to parties that largely keep their power by filtering people off ballots. It's kind of one of the, I won't say unseen, but it's one of the more underhanded things you don't really see in front of you all the time that's going on with this stuff. People wonder why we have so many awful politicians. Why does it feel like I have to pick the lesser of two evils? It's because everyone else got filtered out. No one else is allowed to go on a ballot. Hell, if they get too close, like I said, they send people to your front door to harass you. You really don't have the type of access to a lot of the things that you would think, and that is what ranked choice voting steps in. However, I thought this was interesting. This is an article posted just yesterday. I believe, let me double check this. Yeah, Newsweek article here. Trump rips ranked choice voting in Alaska, a moderating voice in Australia. So former President Donald Trump bashed ranked choice voting systems during a Saturday rally in Anchorage, Alaska. I wonder why he's talking about that in Alaska. His comment came during a tirade against Alaskan Senator Lisa Murkowski, who was one of the handful of GOP lawmakers who voted to convict him during his second impeachment trial last year. In addition to admonishing her as a rhino, it's an acronym for Republican in name only, Trump alleged she was responsible for the state adopting ranked choice voting. She knew she couldn't win a straight-up election, so she went to this ranked choice crap, the ex-president said. She could finish in 5th place but win because of that crazy system. Which, it's one of those kind of like a citation needed things. I don't think there's many situations where, as far as I understand ranked choice voting, you realistically could win for 5th place. I'm sure it's technically possible, but realistically it's probably not how it goes. And they go in here to mention a little bit more about what's going on in ranked choice voting. Alaska is the second state to adopt ranked choice voting for elections statewide, with residents approving the change in the 2020 election. Change also replaced partisan primaries with a single blanket primary, in which the top 4 candidates advance to the general election. Another very important part of this is that idea right there. We'll go through that line one more time. This change replaces partisan primaries with a single blanket primary in which the top 4 candidates advance to the general election. Because again, this right here, the partisan primary, is exactly how you filter names off of a list. Exactly how. They have to be the Democrat. They have to be the Republican. Well, guess what? Those are organizations with interests. Those are organizations with money. Those are people who don't want to lose their elections. Those people who are looking all over the country. And they're not going to take too kindly to other people's names appearing on ballots. So, now we know Donald Trump is one of the many people who doesn't like ranked choice voting. But I think the bigger thing to point out here, and he kind of mentions it a little bit in this, the reason why I wanted to highlight this, I honestly don't like talking about Donald Trump at all. My opinion on Trump has moved to, if sending him to the gallows is the way to get people to shut up about him, do it. I don't care anymore. But there is this idea amongst kind of more conventional politicians, people that kind of existed in the system for a while, that I think this quote kind of sums up pretty well. It's this idea that it's for people who can't win straight-up elections. So they have to go to something else. What does that mean, you can't win a straight-up election, right? Why couldn't they win a straight-up election, right? Is it because the two parties rig it so only their candidates have any chance of winning? Is that why? Now, in this instance, she's running as a Republican. But again, if she's running as a rhino Republican, and let's say there's some MAGA people in the Republican Party over there, they might view her as an outsider. They might say she's a Republican, she's a rhino, Republican in name only. We're not going to put our support behind her. We're going to primary her. And so it's the way around. Now, also I wanted to bring up as, I won't talk too much about my own state I live here now, but Nevada is another one of the states that recently has been pushing very, 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 very hard to get ranked choice voting on the ballot. So here we go. I just want to bring this article up real quick to go through this as well. So This is an article right here, just from earlier this week in July. So Nevadans may be asked to approve ranked choice voting. This year in particular, voters registered as nonpartisan with a minor party weren't able to vote much in the primary election last month here in Nevada. But a group called Nevadans for Election Reform says it wants to change that. The group is part of a coalition that sponsored a PAC called Nevada's Voters First. Anyway, larger point is, why is it important to have something as, top 5, top 4 ranked choice voting going on here in Nevada, right? Why is Nevada a state that would kind of care about this a lot? We'll have the article here. Nevada is one of the states, I don't have this pulled up yet, so I got to pull it up really quickly. But Nevada, I believe, is the state with the highest amount of independent voters in the country, or percentage of independent. Sorry, I'm Googling on the other screen. Sorry about that. Little out Anyway, though, hold on. I was going to take a break here for a minute. Talk to some of the guys who chat. Yes, I have been gone for many, many months. I'm back. Regardless of, anything else, you'll be seeing a lot of content. Whether you're watching or not, there'll be a lot more content going up on this channel. Saw someone mention that they cannot super chat. That is because I have not posted in so long. We got demonetized, but again, it's not why I do this in the first place. Do it just to kind of, honestly, I do it because I like having some place to talk about this stuff. Is the main reason. So anyway. Anything else? Someone asked where Cardin is. Cardin is still in California. I'm still in Nevada. However, I am very close to getting him, not in person, but to get us on the same screen together, commenting on this stuff together again. Because I miss doing it. So we're going to be working towards that as well. And yeah, I guess that's all I want to say about that. Just been gone for a while. Just life, personal stuff kind of got in the way. But I'm back now. Anyways, though. This is what I want to point to. This is what makes Nevada a particularly interesting state for this, and one of the reasons why I would love to see moving forward ranked choice voting, which again, I believe it's on the ballot this November in Nevada, to pass, is because Nevada is a state where neither political party makes up a majority of registered voters. Now, in recent years, the numbers of voters unaffiliated with either major political party have been soaring. Well, some of that increase is due to automatic voter registration at the Department of Motor Vehicles. Neither of the major parties are exactly leading a masterclass in brand development or voter recruitment. And you get into the kind of like the ins and outs of Nevada. Nevada has been a very independent state for a very long time, but the larger thing about it, and the more reason why I wanted to bring it up, is the idea of these states and these areas exist. You know what I mean? There's this kind of like, I don't know, maybe arrogance for it, but there's this idea that, for example, as this young woman told this man, aligning with a party or aligning with a candidate that's not a Democrat or Republican is bad for Democrats and Republicans. And I think the amount of people in the country that care that it's bad for Democrats and Republicans is shrinking. Again, we have states already like Nevada where there's many people who just choose to be unaffiliated. Now, they largely vote with one of the two parties, right? I mean, it's not like there's the Nevada party that's got like a congressman or something. They mostly pick one or the other. But this idea that there is your party, and it's one of the two, is, I would say, shrinking and breaking down across the country. Again, let me guys know what you guys think in chat in the comments if you think that's different. But just for where I'm sitting, especially over the last year. Again, the last year or so, I haven't been commenting much. I haven't been recording much. I haven't been making much content. But I'm still following everything going on. I'm still paying attention. And it really has seemed clear to me, at least, that the amount of people that are okay with what these parties are doing in their name with their votes is decreasing every year, every month. Hell, every week sometimes. Right? I mean, I don't know if I'm even allowed to talk about this, but there's been certain leaks, in reference to certain politicians across the country recently, certain information coming out, certain things being brought to light, which some people are able to live with and just kind of stomach, but there is people kind of saying, like, wow, I don't know why I voted for this. Why am I supporting this? Why was this my options? And as we move forward and continue to move forward, that's where we're headed. I think we're heading there already. I mean, the fact that the Democrats are paying people to go door to door to say, hey, you got to take your name off the Green Party thing in North Carolina. The fact that Donald Trump is over there in Alaska telling people that, it's ranked, just vote and stuff. It's, look what it's done to Australia, which is a great kind of right-wing talking point. You don't want to be like Australia, do you? Right? But you can see this push and pull is coming from both sides. Because they both recognize, rightfully, this is a threat to them and their current power structure. They've been doing stuff this way for a very long time, and they want to keep doing it that way. So that's really all I had. So much to go into that. Yeah, I don't want to go too much into it because, again, I could just kind of ramble on about a bunch of different stuff here. A lot of stuff I've been kind of wanting to comment on for a while. There's my Creative Cloud update, by the way. Thank you, Adobe. And then actually now what I wanted to do, though, I just wanted to ask some you guys in chat, and then if you're watching this on a VOD, please put it in the comments below. What are some other topics and things you guys want to hear about? Wasn't there some things that interest you? I'll be honest, if it's something that I don't know very much about and doesn't interest me, I won't talk about it just because I don't know much about it. But I am curious, just I'm out of touch, kind of out of touch with you guys. I'm out of touch with you guys are paying attention to, watching, listening to. Right? I've been watching from the sidelines, I guess, for a little bit too long. And then while kind of just winding down here for a few minutes, let me see. I think it's just one little side thing I wanted to talk about. Not really. I mean, just more. I pulled this article up. I don't have to go through it, but just kind of more libertarians complaining about what's going on. But largely, I just wanted to highlight this idea that whether you like the Libertarian Party, whether you like the Green Party, whether these parties that you agree with them, whether you think they should even be on ballots or not, this idea that there is not a whole lot of... I mean, there's no fairness in politics. It's a dumb word to use. But this idea that you technically can just go out there, get a bunch of signatures, and get your name on a ballot is kind of one of those little, those kind of little white lies of society, right? Where it's like, you can, right? Like Trump said, Lisa Murkowski could get the 5th most votes and win, I guess. It will probably never happen, though. And not only will it never happen, there will be the largest political organizations in the world funneling time, money, and resources into blocking it from ever happening. Even if it means paying somebody to go door to door like the mafia. Even if it means that. I mean, again, I'm not trying to highlight this particular woman. She's just the only one who got filmed doing it. And she was paid to do it too, so keep that in mind. A lot of people do stuff they don't necessarily love because they're getting paid to do it. Just like those the signature gatherers that find it a little bit ironic that North Carolina Board of Elections was very concerned people were getting paid to gather signatures. But the Democrats paying people to go door to door and tell people to take their name off the petition is fine. You can do that. That's not a big deal. They're not going to look at that as an irregularity. That's not an irregularity. What? You can't just go to someone's front door and say, this is bad for us, take your name off. You can't do that. That's not a democracy. It's not democracy when someone walks up to your front door with walks up to your front door and addresses you implicitly saying, I know your name, know where you live, and I know you signed this. Anyway, sorry. Because I'm getting back into it again. I'm getting kind of a little bit agitated. But the larger point, I guess the last thing here, I know I'm kind of rambling, but the last thing I wanted to talk about, though, is to kind of put the butt on it is, again, we are seeing in Alaska that this is already going on. We are seeing in Nevada, this is something that could be on the ballot soon. This is something that people do want. This is something that is coming. This idea that we cannot always defer to these two parties with the idea that that's where our best interests will lie. If we want things to be better for us and our family and our children, it has to be left or right. There is no other option. I think more and more people are coming to terms. This is actually posted today. Not Hong Kong time, whatever. Posted today in CNN, though, in an interview about how ranked choice voting, or can ranked choice voting save American democracy, but without going too much into the full interview, because it's kind of, they mostly go over what is ranked choice voting? What could it do? What could it mean? I'm guessing it'll be bad for some sitting Democrats and Republicans. But this is now getting closer and closer to just mainstream discussion, right? Donald Trump, unprovoked, bringing it up on rally stages. We're getting there. People who support this stuff, people who want to see this here, we're getting there. There is great forces working against it, but success is being had. Like the idea that maybe someday in the future, we will have broken the stranglehold the Democrats and Republicans have, it's feeling less and less like a dream and more like something that legitimately could happen. So that's It's been one thing I wanted to do. Well, I guess one aside. One reason why I haven't been posting much content lately, just to kind of, be real with you guys for a second, is just the last thing I ever want to do is be one of those people who just turns the camera on and yells about how the world's terrible and all these people are idiots. Even if I mostly think these people are idiots anyway. Like, I want to be able to kind of show you guys that there is some things going on. It's not just things are bad and they're bad, right? I mean, if Donald Trump and the Democrats feel this threatened, they know it's coming. They know these positive, hopefully positive changes. You really never know. Once you decide stuff's going to change, it's all after that out of your hands how it changes, right? For all we know, this could be the worst thing that ever happened, but I don't think it will be, and I really do think giving people more choices as opposed to less is probably the way we need to go. I mean, a lot of people nowadays bloviate and talk about threats to our democracy, while somehow accepting the fact that only allowing whoever Democrat and Republican decision makers want to appear on a ballot is somehow a democracy worth defending. Don't know about that. So anyway, let me go to some of you guys in chats. What news sources are you following these days? I think my news sources are very simple. I will literally, if you want really quickly, just kind of show you how I normally do this stuff. So I will start in one of two places. I will start either on everybody's favorite website, the greatest website ever created. Sorry about that. Twitter.com. But I don't just get on my news from Twitter. I want to show you guys. I'll either use Twitter or Google News if you haven't used Google News. So I'm sure you guys have seen Twitter. I guess if you guys haven't used this yet, if you guys have never actually done this and just gone to news.google.com, I want to show you guys really quickly. I know it's not groundbreaking to go to news.google.com. However, it actually does, especially if you're logged into Google, it does give you a pretty solid breakdown of a lot of different news stories and a lot of different topics in ways where you can kind of just click through and go through. But again, as far as news sources I use, what I do is I use either Google or Twitter to kind of source basic concepts and ideas of stuff going on. For example, what I'm talking about right now with what's going on in North Carolina, I see that video on Twitter, and then, man, all you have to do after that is literally you just, for my news sources, I just go to google.com. I just type in whatever it was. So let's watch. And then, unfortunately, there really is kind of no shortcut. There's no real, easy way through it. Sorry, I opened that in the wrong tab. You kind of have to just, from where I get my news sources, I Google whatever it is that I kind of want to put a thread on, and then you just read a bunch of articles, man. I just go through article after article after article. That's why, for this particular one, I found myself on a lot of local sources. But realistically, in my opinion, you don't source news from one place, you source opinions from one place. You know what I mean? No one place is going to have all the news. They'll have all the opinions, though. If you want the opinion of X publication, go there. You'll get their opinion. But if you want the news, you really have to check them all. And you'd have to go to Politico, Atlantic, Washington Post, New York Times, and then go to local sources and find what it is that's in there. But I recommend people do this, because here's the thing is, if you really want to get the news, you have to check multiple sources. And I'm not saying it's like a journalistic thing. It's just, dude, journalists, some of them are lazy. Some editors are lazy. Some people got deadlines. Some people got stuff they just kind of know they're not allowed to talk about. And that's what makes it to print. And so if you rely on individual sources too much, you're relying on their opinions, their biases, their beliefs. So instead, what I recommend is use something like Google, use something like Google News, Twitter, just something that shotguns info out at you. And then just start going down the trail. Normally, local news sources aren't perfect, but local news sources, someone who worked at what you consider a local news source, tend to have a little bit less oversight, especially on stuff that's not super local, right? For example, if you work at a local news source, criticizing the local businessman who owns a bunch of land for doing some local stuff, probably not very popular. Talking about kind of more mainstream political stuff, it's kind of there. But anyway, kind of a long answer to my question, but that's basically how I go through stuff. And listen, people, and here's the thing too. I do this. There are websites that, I look at as just partisan hack websites, and I kind of write them off right away, right? Stuff like benshapiro.com, right? Let's check out what's on benshapiro.com right now. LeBron James. Wow. Oh, and Jordan Peterson. Wow. I wonder what news articles from benshapiro.com are going to be like, or sorry, dailywire.com. But that being said, if you are trying to get an idea of the story, don't just write off all these things as worthless at all. Sometimes you'll find interesting tidbits or even just different perspectives that can kind of color in why people are behaving a certain way. It's why I just kind of, when you ask about news sources, why I recommend don't have a news source. Ultimately you have to be not your news source, but you have to track down different sources for different stories. Because, for example, sometimes Democrats will legitimately do something stupid, and I know I'm not going to get the best coverage of it on CNN or New York Times. Sometimes you will, but sometimes you won't, because, they don't want to talk about it. The Democrats are doing stupid, And often, by the way, this is both parties, but also, often Republicans do something stupid. Again, benshapiro.com is not going to tell you when he does something stupid. All right? Or how about another one? Let's go to tuckercarlson.com. Daily Caller. Right? Is the Daily Caller going to be all about how, Republicans are stupid and Republicans did X, Republicans did Y? Oh my God, did I get them backwards? Daily Caller, Ben Shapiro, and Daily Wire, whatever. They're pretty similar. But anyway, it's just part of, little side about, for example, State AG apologizes after gun owners' private info is revealed and makes offer to citizens. This was a big story, by the way. This was kind of like crap that this happened, right? We'll go through this, right? Credit monitoring services is what they get. But the thousands of concealed carry permit applicants in the state, including 244 judges and 420 reserve officers, had their names, home addresses, dates of birth, and license plate numbers leaked in a data breach of the California Department of Justice gun database. That is a big deal. Whatever your thoughts on concealed carry permits is, the fact that the government has dates of birth, license plates numbers, home addresses, names in a list, and it just got leaked to the public, that ain't good, man. Like, regardless of what you think about whose data is being leaked, this is a big deal. And sometimes, again, for, kind of, again, it's not all in the open, but this isn't the kind of stuff other publications are going to put front page. Does it need to be front page top story? I don't know. But larger point is there are some stories that do matter. And look, and here's the other thing, right? This is what I need to get out of the story for the most part. That it happened. I guarantee you if I scroll down, they'll have the virtues of the Second Amendment. Here we go. But also, sorry, this is the news parts, right? We sincerely regret the unacceptable disclosure of your personal data and offer my sincerest apology on the behalf of the California Department of Justice. This is news here. Offering complimentary access to credit monitoring services. This is direct quotes from a California political representative, right? This is all just news. The fact that this is in the Daily Caller doesn't matter. Now you get down to Chuck Michel's, president of the California Rifle and Pistol Association's comment on it. This is the part you can kind of throw out. I am not that surprised they reached out to a Second Amendment, a pro-Second Amendment guy who talked about how awful it was the government was leaking gun owners' info. Like, if it was someone else's info, it wouldn't be a big deal. If it's just these people, but, gun owners can't have their info. Also, you think of the irony of, like, are concealed carry permit people really at risk if people knowing that guy has a gun? Does that put that guy at a lot of risk? No, it's more personal data for data stealing, or even if people just want to kind of screw with you, now they have more of your info. It's more for that than it is that these people are going to be targeted for violence. But still, they go through about more stuff. Oh, he's Dana Loesch, or no, he's him, a comment from the Dana Loesch show, and yeah. So again, I don't necessarily this is a part going through a bunch of boring kind of stupid new stuff. But I just do want to point that out because, like, I feel like sometimes it's easy to say that publication's biased and they're covering the story because it fits their bias, so it's just worthless. But there will be hard news in these stories still, right? Like, I could probably right now go to Jacobin and find something on that website on the front page that is interesting and real news. Now, I think it's based, I think it's insane for the most part. I think naming yourself after French revolutionaries is insane. I think it's not, that's my biases, but that doesn't mean that everything they post on the website just lies. Sometimes they might take a weird stance on something. But there you go, this one right here. No wonder there's an air travel crisis. Aliens have been screwing workers for years. Let's see if there's any news in this right here. Sometimes there is. And it's interesting to hear. Let's see. There we go. The spring of 2020, Air Canada temporarily laid off 16,500 staff for an effort to save hundreds of millions. Then the company took big bucks of federal support, over $500 million through the federal wage subsidy alone, and laid off an additional 1,400 workers in January of 2021. So wow, that's in less than a year over, what, 18,000 workers, 17,000 workers almost gone? That's probably going to lead to some issues. Layoffs are devastating, and then here we go. But now, I'm sure layoffs are devastating for anyone, right? This is where you get into kind of the more of the workers' rights of the Jacobin stuff. But still, this idea that some of these airlines are basically cutting corners and we're starting to, as people who don't own the airlines but use them, see the corners being cut directly impact us. It's real stuff, man. And again, if you really want to go deeper, you can go deeper. But just, I guess that was a long tangent just to kind of get to the point. Like, here's a great way to tie it together. This is you relying on particular sources and writing particular news sources off. Like, I will listen to what X says, whatever Y says is crap. Anything in the middle doesn't matter to me, is precisely the issue of a two-party dominated political system. It's precisely the issue. Like, the fact that there's people who read Fox News and the Washington Inquirer, and that's it. And there's people who read CNN and Washington Post, and that's it. Is the same problem as people who vote for Republicans and nothing else, and people who vote for Democrats and nothing else, right? Someone who only gets their news from Breitbart is the same problem as someone who only gets their news from like Jacobin or something. It's the same issue. It's the same issue as only voting Democrat, only voting Republican. It all ties together. And that's what I'm saying. Like, if you want to break through that, you got to start breaking through it kind of as a news consumer first. Like, you have to understand you're largely getting opinions in these. And I can tell you, I was a hack journo writer at a small publication once upon a time. If you know what my full name is, you can track down some of my articles. They're out there. Most of this stuff, it's opinion. Like, realistically, you're not going to get word count on actual good quotes that are worth printing in real info. Like, you kind of have to just, add context. Which, by the way, adding context is opinion. You choose what context to add. You choose how you add the context. That's all opinion. That's all opinion. And so you can kind of prejudge the opinions of a lot of publications, but don't think you could prejudge the facts. There is real facts in a lot of the stuff, and it's worth reading. But again, if you want to know more about it, I wouldn't just take their word for it. I would go to I would Google Air Canada layoffs, click on the news tab, and see, is this something else that people talk about? Or, because sometimes it is just, one random publication decided, you know what, I'm going in on this. But you could see, this is... And here we go. Now you'll notice I'm on City News Toronto. This isn't some, as far as I know, big time, international, clearly politically biased opinion rag. This is probably local news to Toronto. And yeah, the fact that there's big issues in those airports is real. And you kind of work backwards from that. So yeah. Again, sorry, I went way too long. But it's something that I see happen a lot, right? Like for real info will get posted in a story that matters. Like it's actually real. This isn't just some joke someone came up with. And because the wrong publication's leading with it, they'll just write it off as nothing. Yeah, but like that's the classic, You'll see it on social media the most. I don't like social media, so I don't like posts on Twitter. If you follow me on Twitter, I'm sure you notice. Is that a lot of people already know. They don't care about the info, right? So if you say, "Did you know X is going on?" and send them a link, they'll just go CNN. I don't even need to read that. New York Times? Are you kidding me? Fox News, dude. Fox News said it. Like, shut your damn mouth and read it, dude. Who knows what they said? Sometimes they have stupid opinions on things, but they start off with something that actually happened, and it goes both ways. It's for everything. And again, though, but it's the reason why I bring it up, and the reason why I guess I'm kind of harping on it so much is it's the exact same issue as not having ballot access if you're not one of the main parties, right? That's what leads to issues like what we saw in North Carolina and what we're seeing in, a bunch of states. So it leads to this, is this idea that you don't need to take anything seriously that doesn't come from, whatever's ordained as the truth to you. You don't have to take them seriously, right? There's a lot of people, Democrats, Republicans. This is not like this is. I mean, honestly, I'm getting to the point where there's the partisans and then there's regular people, right? You have the partisans on one side who are just partisans. They legitimately, you can almost write off a lot of their opinions because they're not really their own, right? They're just a partisan. They're a foot soldier. They do their job, right? It's a little aside, but one thing when they were, when firearms first started being deployed wide scale in militaries, right? When it got to the point where you basically had to train every single guy in your army to use a gun, something that a couple countries noticed was that it's not as easy to get somebody to shoot someone who's not actually directly threatening their life as it is to get someone to stab someone who's trying to stab them, right? So if you're standing in a line with shields and spears and they have shields and spears and you're fighting each other, it's pretty easy to want to stab the guys who has to stab you. That's not very hard. But if you're just kind of standing and you look off and you see some guy standing off in the distance and he's an enemy soldier, it's a little bit harder to basically just commit premeditated murder on someone who is posing no direct threat to you. It's weird. Again, another little aside. I believe it was like the Austrians. They used to they taught men to shoot at white sheets that were roughly the size of a human. So when you were training for target practice, you would just shoot at the sheet that was like the size of a human, but it was just a sheet. And they found that men shot very good in these target practices. And they put them on the battlefield, they missed a lot. And it's because they weren't trained to shoot people. They were trained to shoot sheets. And they weren't shooting sheets, but they were shooting people. So if you're asking kind of why this matters and why I'm bringing this up is because what the U.S. military and a lot of militaries around the world realized is you train soldiers to shoot without thinking. They shoot first. You train them on shooting targets that look like people and have, and you say you just drill in their head, you shoot first and think about later. You think about it later. It's one of the reasons why some of these soldiers from modern wars have stuff like PTSD and stuff. Old warfare didn't have to instill this in people's heads as much. Because you didn't want to get stabbed to death. You were kind of fighting. You were fighting in line with people. Nowadays, we're spreading people out more and more. You're fighting in smaller groups. You're fighting in more alienated situations. You're going to be able to reach out and touch someone from a few hundred meters away. It's not even looking at you. It's a different thing. And you see a lot of soldiers who feel that way. They felt that they were trained to act first, think later. And then they thought later and realized they regretted the stuff they did. They probably didn't want to murder those people they killed. Anyway, why I'm bringing that up is because that's in a lot of ways what I feel like is sort of happening with modern kind of political discussion. You're not trained to hear the info, take information in, and decide for yourself what you think about it. No. You shoot first. You know what to say. You have these opinions drilled in you. You know exactly what to say to these people. You know exactly what they really mean. You can hear the dog whistles. You know what they're getting at, what they're implying, and you shoot first. You don't even think about it. People do it with articles, right? You can do the thing where you show someone a headline and you scroll up and show them what website it's from and they shoot first. I'll see you. That's crap. It's like, well, do you want to read the article first? Do you want to think about it first? Do you want to kind of consider what's going on first and then decide if it's crap? No, it's crap. I don't read it. And, it's a little bit of, I guess, a weird comparison, but truly, I feel like that's kind of what we see in a lot of modern political discussions, right? I mean, sure, I could probably just pull up a Twitter thread and see it going on. Seeing people shoot first, ask questions later. It's all up and down a Twitter thread. Because that's what people are trained to do now. And it's training. This is drilled into people. Right? It's funny. Speaking again to kind of, stuff that comes from kind of like military, like, I don't know what the word for it is, but just research on how you train soldiers and stuff. The reason why young men make such great soldiers, on top of just being on average in a population, the most physically, they're least likely to have injuries or other issues with like hips, knees, joints that older men will have. And being younger, they have more energy and stuff. But beyond that, young men are insanely impressionable and very susceptible to peer pressure. Right? One guy standing by himself might not necessarily become the greatest soldier as a bunch of guys kind of all teasing and bullying each other into being soldiers. It's kind of what you see on Twitter and stuff, right? One person sitting in a room by themselves, reading these news articles, reading these things, seeing this info, and then processing it themselves in their head, they're probably not going to be a good little soldier out there shooting people for the Democrats and the Republicans, They're probably going to come to more nuanced opinions on stuff. They're probably going to go, yeah, I see what that guy's saying, but also, that could go too far. That could be bad, I could see both cases, but no. It's the constant peer pressure. Are you kidding me? You listen to them? Do you have any idea? And it just goes on and on and on and on forever. No one learns. No one cares. It's not about thinking about your actions, right? It's not about actually understanding what it is you're doing. You just shout down people and call them names and accuse them of having secret motives, because that's what you do. You shoot first. You don't think about it. You don't stop and say, wow, that's a person with a family and kids and a life, right? They have a place in their community. People know them. You know, this person obviously isn't in jail for murdering people. They're probably not the worst person who's ever lived. Don't think about that. They're on the other side, so they deserve no quarter. And I think it's one of the things. I mean, I think you want to talk about a great example of it. Holy cow, you look at the January 6th hearings. There are people that are convinced this is like the biggest deal that ever happened in this country, and there's people who are convinced it doesn't matter and it's a nothing burger. And neither of them want to hear anything from either one of them. They're just going to fight each other on it. And it's I don't know. It's one of the reasons why, honestly, I'm kind of back doing this stuff, I don't think I'm going to change the world, but I see it happening. And even if it means nothing, I'm going to get it out. I'm going to say that this stuff is happening. People are being trained to act and behave in ways that are not good. They're not normal. They are not how you would act otherwise, right? Like I said, people are truly becoming partisans in front of our eyes every day, and it is the worst thing. Partisans have been murdering people across the globe for pretty much forever, right? Before the word existed, there was the same thing happening. However, instead of having any sense of the dangers that could potentially come from something like this, right? Instead of realizing what does it mean when millions of people are just instantly attacking people different from them without ever thinking about what's going on at all. Honestly, you know what? Here's a great example in real time. This is going on. I am not going to weigh in what I think about this personally, right? But this is a hearing going on in our government right now, right? I want you to listen to this and see, do you think anyone's listening? Do you think anyone's paying it? Do you think these people are shooting first and thinking later?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Thanks to all of the witnesses for being here. Before I want to visit with you, Ms. Mensky, but before I do, I just want to clear one thing up. Professor Bridges, you said several times, you've used a phrase, I want to make sure I understand what you mean by it. You've referred to people with a capacity for pregnancy. Would that be women?
Many women, cis women, have the capacity for pregnancy. Many cis women do not have the capacity for pregnancy. There are also trans men who are capable of pregnancy, as well as non-binary people who are capable of pregnancy.
So this isn't really a women's rights issue.
We can recognize that this impacts women while also recognizing that it impacts other groups. Those things are not mutually exclusive, Senator Hawley.
Oh, so your view is that the core of this right then is about what?
So I want to recognize that your line of questioning is transphobic, and it opens up trans people to violence by not recognizing them.
Wow, you're saying that I'm opening up people to violence by asking whether or not women are the folks who can have pregnancies?
So I want to note that 1 out of 5 transgender persons have attempted suicide. So I think it's important
because of my line of questioning? So we can't talk about it?
Because denying that trans people exist and pretending not to know that they exist.
I'm denying that trans people exist by asking you if you're talking about women having pregnancies?
Do you believe that men can get pregnant?
No, I don't think women can get pregnant.
So you are denying that trans people exist?
And that leads to violence? Is this how you run your classroom? Are students allowed to question you?
Absolutely.
Or are they also treated like this, where
No,
they're told that they're opening up people to violence?
We have a good time in my class. You should join.
Oh, I bet.
You might learn a lot.
Wow, I would learn a lot.
All right, so again, I didn't play that because I wanted to weigh in on what I think about this issue. I don't think that's what I think about it. But I want to bring is this. It's just when Senator Hawley stops everything to go in that line of questioning, it's because that's what Republicans are trained to do. Republicans are trained when you're when you're up against, if you're on the kind of more, I don't want to get into the political side, but if you're on the trans critical or the anti-trans side, whatever you want to call it, your training is to resort to that. What is a woman? Are you saying men can get pregnant? That's how they shoot first. And then if you're on the other side, if you're pro-trans, you're training, this causes violence. Trans people are dying. It's not a conversation. Again, they're just shooting at each other. They're just firing rounds at each other. And you'll hear it. You can switch the people arguing. They will make that argument at each other over and over and over and over and over again. Trans people deserve X. Well, what is a woman then? Neither of them are talking to each other. Like I said, this is raising the rifle and firing and then thinking later, what the hell was I even saying? What was I even arguing? All I know is that my training says when put into this situation, I say, so what you're saying is men can get pregnant and what is a woman? That's all I know. Thinking critically about that comes later, man. You know, when you're on the battlefield. And again, this is literally, this is our government operating. This isn't like some random interview. This isn't like NPR having like a sit down. This is a sitting senator questioning a professor over like official government stuff. And again, they both, like good soldiers, go right to the training. You just fall back in your train. You act, then you think. One of the best ways to tell when people are doing this stuff, by the way, in conversations, is when they say, so what you're saying is. The hell you know what I'm saying, man. I just said it. So if you don't believe that, so what you're really saying, that's training. That's what you're trained to do. When somebody says, I believe X, you're trained to say, so what you're really saying is you believe X, but X is bad, or whatever. And now this is one of those things, I'm sure a lot of people watching even will say, well, who cares? Who cares if some senator and some professor are on different ideological lines and they just don't agree? Why does that matter? And that truly doesn't matter, right? Senators or Congress people, whatever, can think whatever the hell they want. They really can. It's why we have a lot of them. It's also why we have two parties. But anyway. Professors, people being witnesses, they can believe whatever they want. Truly. That's part of living in a society. People get to believe different things. But what's concerning is this is scaled up everywhere. This is the quote-unquote discourse isn't a discourse. It's a fight that never ends. And until that's, again, like confronted and addressed, it's just a fight that never ends. And it's weird things happen. People feel like they've been fighting for too long, you know? But you have to think, like, where does it come from? Right? I mean, this guy's an elected official, and she's a professor, and I think it was like Harvard or something. She's a professor at like a very distinguished school. These aren't nobody bums that have done nothing ever. Right? These are people you would believe on some level would be deserving of each other's respect in a vacuum. Right? Might not agree with you, but hey, you're PhD, you're a professor, it's a big deal. You know, might not agree with you, but hey, you're sitting in Congress or Senate, whatever, that's a big deal. But no, I mean, they both recognize each other as enemy combatants immediately. They both recognize this is a battlefield and we're at war. And again, I'm using that as a kind of like a example or an illusion, not literally, but the mindset a lot of people get into is scary, man. And what's even scarier and worse, that I kind of brought up before, it's, studies have been done into did soldiers experience PTSD in the past? And it's honestly been fairly inconclusive. They found that PTSD did exist in the past. One interesting little anecdote, I'm not going to say this is the law, but one interesting anecdote that I heard somebody bring up once was that in ancient Rome, they had a thing in Roman law, you could not sell a slave that had been attacked by a wild animal without disclosing it. Idea being, if you're attacked by a wild animal, it's probably going to have some, long-lasting psychological damage, even if you can't see it on the body, Being mauled by a bear, even if somehow you got away and you're in one piece, it would screw with people's heads. They knew this back then, but you don't see this as much as in war. And again, one of the theories, this is just a theory, but there is a theory that training people to act then think, act then think, act then think, eventually they stop acting and they start thinking, and they start regretting. And I don't think that people that are engaged in this culture war are immune to that. I don't. I think eventually the sun's going to come up, right? The light's going to cast over everything, and they're going to go, Jesus, I was saying what? I was defending who? I was allowing what to happen? I was voting for people who were then going out and doing what? And it's tough, man. And then at that moment, you kind of are in a position, you're in a spot where it's like, you accept that's who you are, right? That's who you've become, or you regret it. Neither of those are good places. And that's something that I don't see discussed very much that concerns me a lot about what's going on. You'll notice in this back and forth between, he's a senator, right? Holly? Yeah, senator. Between the senator and, again, I believe she's a professor. Look at the expressions on their faces. She's smiling. Where is he? He at the end, he was smiling too. He's smiling. It's because when they're in it, they're in it. They're fighting. This is fun. This is games. You know? But eventually it ends. You know what I mean? Eventually the fighting is over. There's no more games anymore. Eventually, whatever they had this hearing over, whatever the actual consequences supposed to come out of this are coming, and they're happening to people. And again, these politicians, these senators, these journalists, some of these professors, they basically have the choice. Accept the fact they did that or live in denial. Neither are good places to be. And it's I don't know. I think ranked choice voting, increasing the amount of choices people have in politics. Don't get me wrong. That is a great place. We need to focus on that. But like the American public needs to on some level understand what it's doing to itself. And again, it's not everyone's fault. There's a lot of training and conditioning that goes into being a modern person. I mean, a lot of it. I mean, I don't think people understand that for almost the entirety of human history, you didn't get to read people's innermost thoughts. Ever. You didn't get to hear the things people don't say but think. Ever. Unless you knew them well and they told you in confidence. This is, quite frankly, uncharted waters for human beings to be in. We've never been here before. We've never been able to see, like, the kind of seeing all directions of all different people, seeing the good and the bad truly, in their own words, just stated. That's new stuff. And thinking that it's going to have zero impact on the way that societies function and people interact in them, it's a bit naive in my opinion. To think that I could go from never knowing my neighbor's thoughts to knowing every single one of them. By the way, nowadays, how many people in chat can predict their neighbor's thoughts? How many people, believe they can? How many people can be like, that guy watches Fox News, I know what he thinks. If they voted for Biden and read CNN, I know what they think. The sad part is, on some level, they're not even really wrong. Because yes, if you can see the programming they're receiving, you can kind of infer that's what they're thinking. Now, but it's also entirely reckless to do something like this. It allows to taking a lot of liberties and assumptions that don't need to be taken and don't need to be made. But you make them and you take them because you know. I know what they think. Best part is when they tell you they don't think that, you can sit back and go, nah, I know what you really think. I know what they really think. I don't know. I think that's to me the most damaging part of it on the ground. On the ground, the most damaging part to it is that this line right here that people say every single day to me is like really, 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 really one of the most damaging things going on in this country. And it's, if X was different, Y would have been different. Right? You just know. This is used frequently, and again, I'm not weighing in my personal opinions on this, but I just want to highlight, this is a very unhealthy way to think of things, right? Mass shooter will happen. He'll get caught, and he'll be just not black, or they could be Hispanic, Latino, whatever. And someone will say, if he's black, they would have killed him. You just know it. Truth is, no, you don't. You believe that. And it's a very crazy thing to want to believe. If it happens, call it out when it does. But to just say, is always dangerous. And I use that because a lot of people agree with that stance. But people use that same line of thinking for stuff that's a lot more abstract, a lot more weird, and a lot more out there. And it's like, no, you don't know that, right? If Democrats get in control, they're just going to turn every 9-year-old trans and be teaching them to be gay in schools. No, you don't know that. You believe it. I believe you believe it. But no, you don't know that. And convincing ourselves we do is bad. Because you know what happens? What happens when you convince yourself you know something and you're confronted with something that says maybe you're wrong? How many people have had that happen? They've thought they knew something. And let's say it's something that's not political and not, very high anxiety. Let's say it's something like, driving, directions. Turn here, turn right here. You're in a car or something, make this right. And they're like, what? Why? No, we'll just keep going. No, there'll be traffic, make the right, come on. You make the right, you get stuck in traffic. How many people are just lining up to say, you told me so, you're right. And how many people are like, nah, it's BS. There's normally never traffic here. There would have been so much more traffic if we didn't turn. You have no idea. I take this road all the time. There must be an accident or something. That's what people do, man. They don't go, oh my God, you're right. We shouldn't have turned there. You're right. I'm an idiot. No, they'll dig in. They'll decide. No, I know what I was doing. I know what I'm thinking. I know where I was going. I knew it would have been better, but it just whatever happened. And like I said, it's the danger with being so sure that you know what would have actually happened if things were different. Because you don't. You've been trained to think you do, but you don't. And it's, I don't know. Sorry, something I see way too frequently that actually does concern me. Actually does kind of like bother me. It's the line of thinking that leads to, in my opinion, some very, very, very bad behaviors on a societal level, right? Because if we know that a certain group of people are going to do a certain thing, maybe we should be proactive. If we know what would really happen if the tables were turned, maybe we should proactively do something about that. Yeah, that's sorry. That was a bit longer of a tangent than I wanted to go on. It's just I guess I haven't been live in a while, and there are some things that legitimately are kind of, I see a lot that bother me. Again, because I don't post very much on Twitter, but I'm on Twitter not all day, every day. But like I said, it's one of the places I go to see what's being discussed, what's being talked about, what's some of the news that people seem to think is important. And it's just, I don't know, I see a lot of stuff that distresses me, and it's why I do believe in, having additional options, people politically. Because I don't think it works, whereas having more names on a ballot just makes things better. I don't think it works that way. But I do think that psychologically and mentally, reaffirming to people they do indeed have a choice. Just reaffirming to them, it is not A or B. It's A, B, C, D, E, F, and you get to pick one. It's not A and B, but really it's just A, because if you go for B, you're a bad person. It's not that. Right? I mean, shouldn't go for now. That's the other damaging part of this. Because you don't even have to convince someone the party you want them to support is good. Just convince them they can't support the other one. And a lot of people feel that way. They feel like they are aligned with a party that they kind of, quite frankly, don't have very many coherent thoughts on why that party is good, but they're aligned against a party that they really dislike, which can only happen when you restrict choices. So again, sorry. So I don't want to waste everyone's time. Any other questions you guys have in chat, or if you for later on the VOD, please put them in the comment below. I didn't mean going this long in this long on it, but it is something I do think is really important, and it is the kind of thing that I think it's the reason why it is. It's the reason why it's more than just kind of like a pet project of some, or it wouldn't just be nice to have greater access to ballots. It wouldn't just be nice to have more options and party registration. I think it's really one of the only ways peacefully out of the situation we're in. I really do. I think it's one of the few ways you can get people to put their spears down and come together. Because again, we watched this video early, but in this video, at one point, the woman says, well, it's bad for Democrats if you sign up for the Green Party. And he says, well, maybe the Democrats should move left then. Right? Like maybe if it's bad for them, that's their problem and not mine. But people don't feel that way. If you're a Republican, if something's bad for the Republican Party, it's bad for you. If you're a Democrat, something's bad for the Democratic Party, it's bad for you. And that's not true. It really isn't. These parties are not good for you. They're good for themselves. They always have been, always will be. I think it's a little bit fascinating. Especially, and this will be, I'll be a little bit critical of people on the left and kind of people on the left as they talk. People on the left get very, very snooty and condescending about the fact that businesses are legally declared as people under law, big businesses. They have fiduciary responsibilities to their investors and their shareholders. They don't care about you. They'll screw you over any time because they have a fiduciary responsibility to make money. Well, Democrats got a responsibility to win damn elections, okay? They don't care what happens to you. They got to win the election. People think, well, we're the voters. We're the shareholders. No, you're not. The literal money bags are the shareholders that go in. You think it's free? How about this one? How many people know about this story? I honestly might do a video. I have the video. I did a video specifically on this. Let's see. Sorry, I'm Googling really quickly. But where was it? Where was it? There we go. This is probably it. By the way, my source for this one, I'm going to show you guys. This is the Brookings Institute. So I like to show you guys where there is. Brookings Institute. I believe it's like some kind of weird political nonprofit thing. Anyway, though, whether you agree or disagree, some serious fellows that don't screw around. This is the problem with the committee tax in Congress. So, chairman of the U.S. House's most coveted committees, the so-called A committees, that include appropriations, energy and commerce, financial services, rules, and way of means, are each expected to raise at least $1.2 million from the National Republican Congressional Committee to satisfy the party dues slapped on members by GOP leaders. Less coveted gavels on B committees, like the Transportation and Infrastructure Committee, come with a price tag of $875,000. Listen to this. It isn't just chairmen or just Republicans who have to pay the piper. Merely to earn a slot on a coveted committee, a member is expected to fulfill certain party fundraising expectations. Party dues, it is important to note, are completely separate from and in addition to funds each member must raise for his or her own personal campaign. Now, this is not something 100% unique to Republicans and Democrats. This is kind of how it goes up on the Capitol. All right, they mentioned party dues are involuntary. In his first week in Congress, former Rep. David Jolly was literally given an invoice of what he owed to the party for the privilege of serving. Former Rep. Trey Rattle explains how party leaders pressure members to spend more time dialing for dollars. Every time you walk into an NRCC meeting, a giant goddamn tally sheet is on the prominent display that lists your name and how much you're given or haven't. It's a huge wallet. Sounds like Glenn Ross, right? So again, it isn't the voters that are the shareholders in these companies. It's the literal damn shareholders. Oh, you got elected to Congress. Cool. Where's your $1.2 million mandatory contribution to sit on a committee and do your job? Where is it? Again, you don't pay that to the federal government. That isn't administration fees. You pay that to the committee. You pay it to the NRCC. What? I got elected. My constituents voted for me. Cool. They better give you 1.2 mil or else you ain't doing jack. So, something like it's the exact same issue that corporations have in this country. They have a responsibility not to the people, but to wealthy individuals who kind of control what goes in and out. That's who they're responsible to. The Democratic Party and the Republican Party are responsible for getting all those millions, not getting the votes. They take the votes for granted because it's a two-party system. You vote for nobody, them, or the opponent. That's it. So all they have to do is demonize their opponent enough. Because some people are obviously just going to align one way or the other. Some people will just be Democrats or just be Republicans. They don't have to fight for them. They just are. But the bottom line is if you're not paying big bucks to do anything, you don't get to do anything. Also, I love these both former reps. Maybe they couldn't raise the money, man. That's something else, right? You wonder who gets primaried, who doesn't. Because, you could try to primary anyone you want. Parties can more or less put their thumb on the scale one way or the other. They reserve that right. I don't think it's crazy even to say they reserve that right? Why shouldn't they reserve the right to put the thumb on the scale? What the hell? You're gonna primary this dude who shows up with 1.5 million every year to get in the committees? Like hell you are. That dude gives me so much money. You're not. He's staying. However, you want to primary someone whose name's always on that list? You want to primary someone that I'm coming around every day saying, "Where's my money?" Oh, get his ass out of here, man. I don't care. Right? And again, just to kind of, highlight this a little bit more. Nor are party dues a GOP-only practice. Democrats also levy a committee tax. I mentioned a 2013-2014 campaign cycle. Democratic members serving on one of the A committees were told to transfer at least $1.5 million to the DCCC. Democrat rank and file on the A committees were expected to kick in at least $450,000. Typo. Democrats ranking members serving on one of the A were told to transfer 1.5. Rank and file. Oh my God, that is hilarious. So the Democrats are a little nicer. The rank and files, the privates, the grunts, the janitors of the party. We know you're on hard times. You haven't been up here long enough to enrich yourself. It's only $500,000. Also, it shows you what Democrats think of people that have been in the Democratic Party for a long time. It's 3 times more for you, buddy. I know what you make. People who just got elected, hey, they're young people, they're Democrats, they're fighting for the rights of people. Maybe they don't have a lot of money yet, so we'll only ask for $500,000. But the people that have been around for a while, the senior members, the ranking members, oh, buddy, we're going to put you at the top of the committee because you've been around for a while. So 3 times, because we know you're good for it. Every single member of the House of both parties is given a target they're expected to raise for the party. Listen to stuff blows my mind. A DCC internal document itemizes every Democratic member's party dues and the amount expected to be raised on behalf of the DCCC. Knowing that the opposing party mandates party dues forces the other to follow suit, thereby creating a vicious cycle of mutually assured, wow! It's almost like if there was more options, this wouldn't happen. It's almost like if there wasn't only 2 parties, so they could just point to each other and say, they do it too. We wouldn't be in this position. So anyway, I have about an hour and a half. I haven't gone too long. I've gone roughly what I was looking to go in the first place. So before I wrap up, I am everyone who joined me in chat, anyone who joined here live, thank you guys very much. I know I've been gone for a while. I honestly at this point don't really expect anyone to be tuning in anymore. I'm mostly just kind of doing it because I want to get it out there. But I very much appreciate it, especially anybody watching the VOD or whatever. And I've said this before, but truly mean it this time. Please look forward in the coming days and weeks for more and more stuff to be posted. I'm going to be going out of town a little bit here, so there will not be a consistent schedule, but as much as possible. I do want to get out here. I do enjoy doing this. And then just any other questions or anything else you want to ask, please throw it in the chat. Be winding down here for a minute, and then after that, really just hope you guys all have a great day. And again, it was really nice having you guys here with me. Something I very much enjoyed doing. So I'm glad you guys are here and kind of, I don't want to say allow me, but you definitely make it a little bit more fun when I have other people around instead of doing that myself, right? And I guess tell you what, just for everyone still hanging out, last few minutes here, we'll just do it very quick. I'll actually show you guys my little quick rundown of what I see on Twitter every day, see if anything interesting comes up. All right. So let's see. Oh, nice, Jack Posobiec. I'll admit, too, I do the same thing. I look Jack Posobiec. Okay, cool, it's right-wing opinion. Right, where's some other ones I can look at? I think Ryan Fournier, I think that's right-wing opinion. This is right-wing opinion. Ari Melber, it's left-wing opinion. Tara Reid is like alt-left. She's critical of Biden because, for obvious reasons. This is entertainment news. I do the same thing. I just look at the name, or I look at who retweeted it, and I just make my decision based on that. It's not good, right? Oh, cool. Speaking of, Scott Santon's just retweeted that ranked just voting article we were going through. Oh, the Jill Biden thing. You know what? I haven't looked all the way into that. I've only heard a little bit about it. That's a great way to end this. Because I don't really know what exactly that was about. I heard a little bit about it. So let's look. Once again, I get the thread, and I just go to Google and try to find as many publications as I can. And try to figure out what the hell it was they're talking about. Breakfast taco. Jill Biden's breakfast tacos comment. FLOTUS responds back. Tacos comments. Here we go. Also, you'll notice this. USA Today just says she's sorry. Fox News attacks The View, and then Fox News says that she apologized for tacos comments. And then Dallas Morning News and The Hill actually mention what it is she said. They actually tell you the story. Oh, this is also, though, a media critique. The right rips Jill Biden for saying Hispanic community as unique as breakfast tacos. She really said that? Referring to Unidos U.S. President Raul Izguerra, I have no idea how to pronounce that, I apologize. She commented on the diversity of the Hispanic community. She said, he helped build this organization with the understanding the diversity of the communities as distinct as the bodegas of the Bronx, as beautiful as the blossoms of Miami, and as unique as the breakfast tacos here in San Antonio is your strength. Yeah, that's a little weird. That's a little funny. She definitely probably shouldn't have said that. I don't think it's funny though. Even The Hill, when they're mentioning what she said, it's in the context of the right rips her for saying this. I don't know. I feel like that's definitely a pretty pig-headed thing to say, right? And I also think that's kind of something we've lost, is that you can be kind of ignorant and pig-headed without being a deliberate asshole. You know what I mean? Like, you could say something stupid and ignorant without meaning harm deliberately behind it. That's what this sounds like to me. Sounds like a pretty stupid thing to say. Again, it's pretty dense to think that, oh, the bodegas. I'm sure every Latino person in the world is just, they all are just lockstep and armed with their bodega love. Because that's if you're a Latino, you go to a bodega. That's just the way it is. Miami, Latinos in Miami. One of the things that I feel like is really offensive too, that comes from like the major parties in general, is this the idea like, I'm not going to pretend I'm some like expert on like what etymology or whatever the word is for. I think etymology is study of words, right? But I believe Latino just speaks to people who speak. I think mostly for people who speak Spanish, right? That's like largely what a Latino is. Like it isn't like they're from. Latino isn't a person from the Latino region of Spain. You know what I mean? Like I'm pretty sure it's a pretty common thing they share, and while they are diverse within that, I don't. It's kind of like appealing to the Anglo. The Anglosphere is so diverse. You have the Canadians, and you have the Australians, you have the English and the Irish and the Americans. It's like, yes, those are different countries with different cultures and different people. They all speak English, okay, but that's about it. And I think it's kind of the same idea here, where it's like, oh, you're all Latinos, right? Right? Cubans in Miami, Venezuelans and Mexicans in San Antonio. You're all just tacos, right? Y'all go to the bodega. It's just like, Jesus, think for a second what you're saying. But like some problem Dustin put out in the comments, it probably comes from a good place, which is tone deaf. But where stuff like that kind of, why the culture war is so destructive in our country with this kind of stuff, is because some people are allowed to be tone deaf and some people aren't. Who those people are decides on, whoever's the one saying it, right? But sometimes certain people are just allowed to be tone deaf. Other times they're just not. And that's it. That's where you can see where the culture war kind of leads into other problems. It can compound, right? Because here's the thing. If you're a Republican that feels like you're not allowed to be well-intended but, misspeak, you're not allowed to do that. You're not going to give her that same grace. You're going to call her a racist. So she's a terrible person. She hates Mexicans. And when that happens, if you are a Democrat who wants to defend Joe Biden, not only is it, probably well-intentioned but just kind of a little bit ignorant. No. She should have said that was a good thing. And it's, like I said, they get you showing your last face people for no reason. You're supposed to be able to just say, I wouldn't have said that. It's probably a little bit rude, but I don't think she hates Mexican people. But it's not about what she said or what one person says. It's about how you see other people treated that will kind of inform how you feel about this stuff. Which I guess kind of gets back to the last thing I'll say. Everybody in this country needs to treat people with a whole lot more grace and a whole lot more understanding. Right? Like I said, you can make the case for Joe Biden being an evil racist who thinks all, I mean, oh my God, who remembers the Kelly Osbourne quote? Mr. Trump, who's going to clean your toilet? Who's supposed to clean the toilets? What are you talking about? That's where stuff comes from, though, right? It's this idea that you're just allowed to say that. Because people know what I meant. Don't like it. Anyway, sorry, I do what I always do. I rambled way too long. Appreciate you guys all for being here and watching the VODs. Appreciate you for watching the VOD. Keep tuned. I'll be posting more and more stuff. Please, again, put in the comments any stuff that you see that you just kind of want to anything that's happened in the months I've been gone that you kind of want to hear me comment on or opinion, I will be working to get Cardin back. It's just we do live in different states, so it would have to be remote. And it's hard enough for me to, point a gun at Cardin, force him into the studio when we're in the same city. So doing it remotely from a computer is a challenge. Nonetheless, though, please have a great day, everybody, and I hope to be seeing